Hey folks, Larry here. In this video, I'm going to share my approach to learning new frameworks. I always start by trying to understand the high level architecture so I can develop a mental model of how everything is wired together. This is really important because without the mental model, it's really easy to get lost in the nitty gritty details. There's usually a section in the documentation that explains the architecture, but nowadays I just ask the AI to generate an overview, although I do still read the docs occasionally. As I'm trying to understand, I come up with a bunch of questions like why things work the way they work, or why certain design decisions were made, or how some features were implemented under the hood. I always try to answer these on my own first, and then I get the AI. I ask the AI to check for correctness. I think this is a great way to solidify the mental model. It also helps in identifying failure cases and bottlenecks early on. It's really important that you identify these early as you try to productionize. Otherwise, you're going to be in for a treat when the customers start yelling at you. So that's why a lot of discovery work needs to be done before a framework can even be used. If you're not trying to productionize, then that's a different story. But I always find that having a high level understanding upfront will save you a lot of time later. Afterwards, I might try to build a miniature version of the framework from scratch just for learning purposes. Uh, this is really time consuming, so I don't do it with every framework. I just do it with the ones that I really need to understand but am not familiar with. When I was initially learning web development, I tried to build everything using vanilla HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and I wrote some not so great code. I ended up doing a bunch of refactors. Result was also not so great, but I did develop a lot of really important understandings that would help me learn React. When I learned React, it didn't take that long and it was pretty easy because I already had a mental model of how components and states works. I just had to adapt it a little. Recently, I've been learning computer graphics. It's a topic that's new to me, but I want to understand it deeply, so I end up implementing a lot of stuff from scratch, like drawing basic objects, transforms, lighting, simple physics, etc. I went through a bunch of math. It was a huge pain, and my implementation wasn't really that great. So I suspect like a lot of people probably would skip this part. But I learned a ton. I developed some really useful intuitions, and it just became so much easier to pick up frameworks and handle these calculations for you. A framework is really just a set of functionalities that make an underlying system easier to use. I think you only appreciate it after you've gone through the pain of doing everything on your own. Also, just knowing how stuff works under the hood means that you can do so much more and quicker. I've been watching various videos on making 3D art, and there's many cases where people just randomly tweak parameters until something works. In particular, there's one instance where this person was trying to generate random points that follow a spiraling structure, and they spent a lot of time tweaking parameters. Often they get a blocky structure. Uh, so I just thought this was so much easier with a bit of math. You model the spiral as a parameterized curve. You find some tangents by taking derivatives, and then you do some rotations. I tried it. I got a nice spiral. It didn't take as long, but understanding the math is not straightforward. So there's a trade off. There's this thing called the law of leaky abstractions, which states that all non-trivial abstractions leak their implementation details. For systems that are more sophisticated, you're eventually going to run into a failure condition that can't easily be fixed. If you don't know how things work under the hood, you're going to be at a loss. But if you do know, then you're going to have the skills to navigate these problems and solve them. So it's really crucial that you have these skills if you want to go deep into software engineering and build the systems at scale. But there is that time trade-off again, so you got to find the right balance. When it comes to actually using a framework, I always have a goal in mind, which is typically building out a project in phases. I put in a lot of effort up front to make sure that the project scope is clear. Because if the project is well scoped, then it becomes really easy to identify the parts of the framework that you'll need and how to use them. You can even like predict the interfaces and where they'll live, even if you haven't gone through the exact offerings. But I always ask the AI just to confirm. I really read documentation anymore. I kind of just ask the AI everything. I still do courses though, but I don't go through the material sequentially. I just look at the relevant topics. I skip to that, find an overview, and then I try to use the features on my own. Afterwards, I compare with how it's used in the course. By the way, this only applies for framework learning, for foundational stuff like math, CS, and conceptual understanding of systems. I don't skip any steps. Definitely don't skip steps for those. For the first iteration, I just try to get something working. I'm not trying to use the framework in the best way possible. I'm not trying to optimize. I'll probably have adopted some anti-patterns without even realizing. The purpose is to deepen the understanding of things so that they can be improved in future iterations. Premature optimization is the root of all evil, after all. As you build, you'll see structures more clearly. You'll often realize that the way you're doing things is wrong and there's a better approach. This is perfectly natural. When I started my career, I always built request timeout handlers myself. Even though the library supports it, I was reinventing the wheel. Some of my implementations were buggy, so I'd have to tack on bug fixes, and that just complicated things. Eventually, I deleted everything and delegated to the library, so that wasn't so great. It was a good learning experience, though. It's just that the resulting software was not so good. You do have to make the mistakes first before you can build good software, so don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more you learn, the simpler your builds. You want your system to be as simple as possible. A lot of time I need a feature that isn't supported, or I find a bug. When this happens, I make a post somewhere, or I might submit a PR if I have time. If you're an avid user, you're in a really good position to contribute and set direction because you've gone through the details. You've seen where the framework succeeds and where it fails. You'll have really good intuitions on how things can be improved. So it's really good opportunity to contribute. And I personally believe that users know best. As you use more and more frameworks, you'll start to notice similarities. You'll be able to pick them up faster. For example, all these front-end frameworks like React, like Vue, Svelte, they all have some sort of component system. Uh, or state management or props. So hopping onto Vue, if you've done React, is not going to be as difficult compared to if you were starting from scratch. But if you've done algorithms and computability theory, you've built foundational systems like compilers, databases, then you'll notice a lot of these fundamental techniques show up in these libraries. So like even if you've never done front end before, then like picking up like say React is not really going to be that difficult, which is why I always tell people who are new to learn the foundations first before jumping into a framework. That's going to set you up for long-term success. So yeah, that's how I learn frameworks. It's very self-directed. If you try to figure things out on your own, then you're going to learn a lot. All right, that's going to be it for this video. If you're interested in tech and you want to chat, please join my Discord. Links in the description below, and I will see you next time.